There's a question people stopped asking about Matthew Perry a long time ago. Not, who is he? Because everyone knows. Chandler Bing, the sarcastic one. The one who made us laugh for 10 years straight on Thursday nights. The real question is, how did a man who made millions laugh end up completely alone? October 28th, 2023. A Saturday morning, a hot tub. That's where they found him. And when they did, they discovered something that would shock not just Hollywood, but the entire world. Matthew Perry didn't just die. He was killed by a network of doctors who mocked him, dealers who profited off him, and a system that weaponized his addiction against him. But before we talk about how he died, we need to understand how he lived. Because the tragedy isn't just the ending. The tragedy is that nobody saw it coming, even though the signs were there the entire time. Matthew Perry was born on August 19th, 1969, in Williamstown, Massachusetts. His father was an actor. His mother was a journalist and press secretary to the Canadian Prime Minister. Hollywood blood ran through his veins before he even knew it. But here's the thing about being born into Hollywood. It doesn't guarantee a happy childhood. His parents divorced when he was a baby. He was raised primarily by his mother in Ottawa, Canada. Cold winters, quiet streets, a kid searching for attention in a place that didn't have much of it. So he found two outlets. Tennis. He became obsessed with it. Top-ranked junior player in Canada. He was that kid, the one who practiced 10 hours a day, who had dreams of going pro. For a moment, he thought that was his future. Then he moved to Los Angeles at age 15 to live with his father. And suddenly, he wasn't the best anymore. He got demolished by California competition. All that promise, all that work, just evaporated. So he pivoted. Acting. At 15, he started taking improv classes at LA Connection. He knew his dad's world. He knew he could do this. By high school, he was in every school play. By graduation, he'd already landed his first TV role, a small part in a show called 240 Robert, ironically alongside his own father. The cameras didn't scare him. They felt like home. Throughout the 1980s, Matthew Perry collected small roles, guest appearances on Charles in Charge, Silver Spoons, Growing Pains. Nothing stuck. Nothing took off. He was just another struggling actor in LA waiting for his break. Then in 1987, he got a lead role on a sitcom called Second Chance, later renamed Boys Will Be Boys. He was on the cusp, but the show got canceled. And so did the next one. And the next one. Pilot after pilot. Failed show after failed show. By his mid-20s, Matthew Perry was looking like a cautionary tale. A kid with talent but no luck. Someone Hollywood was going to chew up and spit out. He was literally one audition away from giving up. He was 24 years old. A new show was being developed. 6 young people living in New York. The pilot was called Friends. Matthew Perry auditioned for the part of Chandler Bing, the sarcastic one, the one who deflected pain with humor, the one who made jokes because vulnerability was terrifying. He knew the role. He was the role. When he got cast, he had no idea he was stepping into the biggest show of the 1990s. Nobody did. The networks passed on it initially. The show could have died before it even started. But it didn't. Friends became a phenomenon. Week 1, millions of people tuned in. By season 2, it was unstoppable. By season 3, it was the biggest thing on television. And Matthew Perry became an international star. Suddenly, he went from struggling actor to household name. From $22,500 an episode to $75,000 to eventually $1 million an episode. The money was astronomical. The fame was suffocating. He did movies during the off-season. Fools Rush In 1997, a romantic comedy, where he got paid $1 million. The Whole 9 Yards in 2000. Almost Heroes with Chris Farley. He was everywhere. This was supposed to be his victory lap. This was the dream he'd been chasing since he was 15 years old. But there was a problem nobody saw coming. When Matthew Perry was filming Fools Rush In, on set he had a jet ski accident. Nothing catastrophic. But he had pain. Real pain. Genuine injury. So a doctor prescribed him Vicodin. It was supposed to be temporary. A few weeks of painkillers, then move on. Except something happened the moment that pill hit his system. For the first time in his chaotic life with his demanding career, his broken family, his loneliness hidden behind a Hollywood smile, he felt relief. Not just physical relief, emotional relief. Like someone had finally turned off the noise in his head. He discovered that pills could do something fame couldn't. They could make him feel okay. By season 3 of Friends, he was taking Vicodin every single day. Not occasionally. Every day. He started faking injuries to get prescriptions. Migraines that didn't exist. back pain that wasn't real. He'd go to open houses on Sundays and search their medicine cabinets, stealing pills from strangers' homes. Because at 28 years old, at the height of his career, at the exact moment he should have been the happiest, he was becoming an addict. And the scariest part? Nobody noticed. He showed up to set, he hit his marks, he delivered his lines. His castmates saw nothing. The producers saw nothing. The audience saw nothing but Chandler Bing making them laugh. What they didn't see was the actor inside taking up to 55 Vicodin pills a day. His body was consuming the pills so fast he needed more and more just to feel normal. His weight dropped from 225 pounds to 128. You could see it on the show. Season 3, he's full. Season 4, he's thinner. Season 5, he looks like a ghost. He later said you could track his addiction by his weight and his appearance. When I'm carrying weight, it's alcohol. When I'm skinny, it's pills. But even as he was destroying himself from the inside, his career was still going up. Here's the brutal honesty Matthew Perry would later reveal. He doesn't remember filming seasons 3 through 6 of Friends. 3 years of the biggest show of his life. 3 years of the moments that defined the 1990s. By 2000, things got darker. In 2000, Perry was hospitalized with pancreatitis, a condition directly caused by alcohol and opioid abuse. His pancreas was failing. He was 30 years old and his body was already breaking down. The doctors gave him Dilaudid, another opioid, for the pain. He wrote in his memoir, "It was my new favorite drug. I would have stayed in that hospital for 100 days if they kept administering it. The day they released him from the hospital, he crashed his Porsche into a house. No one was in the house. It was abandoned. But if someone had been home, he could have killed them. A man high on painkillers behind the wheel of a sports car. That's how bad it had gotten. The irony? Friends was still being filmed. Friends was still the biggest show in the world. Matthew Perry was still Chandler Bing. He called his parents. I was in fear of losing my life, he said later. I knew I had to do something. His parents drove him to Hazelden, one of the most exclusive rehab centers in Minnesota. Friends was still in production. There were still 13 episodes left to shoot. They let him go. The cast, the producers, everyone supported him. He spent 2.5 months in treatment, and while he was there, something happened that captured the tragedy perfectly. During season 7, Chandler and Monica get married. It's one of the most iconic moments of the series, a major turning point, the episode that defines that season. Matthew Perry filmed that episode from a rehab facility. They drove him to set. He filmed the wedding in a pickup truck, then drove him back to treatment. At the height of his success, at the most important moment of his career, he wasn't really there. He was a ghost in a pickup truck, shuttling between a soundstage and a treatment center. When he came back to set, everything changed. He was sober. He was present. The cast noticed immediately. One of the producers said, I hadn't realized how much he hadn't been there before. For seasons 8 and 9, Matthew Perry was genuinely sober, clean, present. And guess what season did he get nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series? Season 9, his sober season. He said later, I was like, that should tell me something. It should have, but it didn't. Over his life, Matthew Perry went to rehab 15 times. 15 times. He spent $7 to $9 million trying to get sober. He underwent 14 abdominal surgeries to repair damage from opioid abuse. In 2018, his colon literally burst from the damage he'd done to his body. The doctors told his family he had a 2% chance to live. He was in a coma for 2 weeks. They put him on an ECMO machine, a machine that does the breathing for your heart and your lungs. That's what they use when you're basically dead and they're trying to bring you back. And somehow he survived. He spent 5 months in the hospital, 9 months with a colostomy bag, scars on his body that would be permanent reminders of how close he'd come to death. Most people would have given up after that. But Matthew Perry was still fighting, still trying, still believing that he could get better. In 2011, he opened a sober living home in Malibu called the Perry House. In November 2022, he published his memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, a memoir. The book was a bestseller. Millions of people read his story. Millions learned that behind Chandler Bing, there was a man fighting the hardest battle of his life. By October 2022, Matthew Perry had been sober for 18 months. He bought a $5 million home in the Hollywood Hills. He was attending the French Open. He was traveling. He was living. He was rebuilding. For the first time in decades, it looked like he might actually make it. Matthew Perry had shoulder surgery. He needed pain management. A doctor named Salvador Plasencia came recommended. Reputable. worked with celebrities. What Perry didn't know was that Placencia had already sent text messages to another doctor named Mark Chavez. I wonder how much this moron will pay. They weren't treating an addiction. They were hunting a target. They prescribed Perry ketamine marketed as depression and anxiety treatment, but really it was a money-making scheme. Placencia charged $2,000 per vial. The vials cost about $12. That's a 16,600% markup. Perry paid it because he wanted relief. But Placencia and Chavez needed a supply, so they connected with a middleman named Eric Fleming. Fleming connected with Jasveen Sangha. Sangha is known on the street as the ketamine queen. She runs a drug operation out of North Hollywood. In her house, thousands of pills, vials of ketamine, methamphetamine, cocaine, everything an organized drug dealer needs. And she knew ketamine killed people. So when Sangha heard about a high-profile celebrity who wanted ketamine, she knew exactly what she had. She packaged up 51 vials. Fleming picked them up with cash. The cash came from Kenneth Iwamasa, Matthew Perry's personal assistant. 20 years of loyalty, living in Perry's home. Perry turned to him and said, "Get me ketamine. I'll give you money." Iwamasa couldn't refuse his boss. He became part of the network. October 28th, 2023, a Saturday morning. Perry woke up and asked Iwamasa to inject him with ketamine at 8:30 a.m., then again at 12:45 p.m. Then a final request, "Shoot me up a big one." At nearly 2 p.m., Iwamasa administered what would become a fatal dose, pharmaceutical-grade ketamine. Ketamine meant for a surgical procedure, into a man who just woken up from his morning injection. Iwamasa left the house to run errands. When he came back an hour later, he found Matthew Perry floating face down in the jacuzzi. Unconscious. Drowning. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The autopsy would show ketamine levels equivalent to surgical anesthesia. His lungs filled with water. His heart gave out. His body simply couldn't handle what had been injected into it. A network of 5 people, 4 of whom were willing to profit off his death, had killed him. Kenneth Iwamasa pleaded guilty. The loyal assistant. He cooperated with investigators and admitted to administering the injections. He's facing prison time, but investigators acknowledged he was just following his boss's orders. Dr. Mark Chavez pleaded guilty. Eric Fleming pleaded guilty. Dr. Salvador Placencia, the one who mocked him in text messages, who called him a moron, who charged him 16,600% markups, is facing up to 120 years in prison. Jasveen Sangha, the ketamine queen, is facing up to 45 years. When police searched her home, they found text messages. After Perry died, she immediately called Fleming. "Delete all our messages." She'd already killed someone with ketamine. She knew exactly what she was doing. The U.S. attorney said it perfectly. These defendants cared more about profiting off of Mr. Perry than caring for his well-being. When Matthew Perry died, the world mourned a TV star. But what we should have mourned was a man who survived 3 decades of addiction hell, only to be killed by predators in a system designed to help him. He spent his last years trying to help others, creating treatment homes, writing his memoir, speaking openly about recovery. All he asked was that when he died, people remember him not for friends, but for what he did to help people struggling with addiction. That was his legacy. That was what mattered to him. In a cruel twist of fate, the thing that killed him was the very thing that haunted him his entire life: addiction, profiteered upon by people who saw him as nothing but a dollar sign. Matthew Perry's story isn't a cautionary tale about addiction. It's a cautionary tale about a system that weaponizes vulnerability.